The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Captain Sarah "Ghost" Mitchell stood at attention in the briefing room at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. The desert sun blazed through the windows, casting harsh shadows across the polished floor where 24 of the Air Force's top pilots had gathered for the most prestigious aerial combat exercise of the year. "Red flag 24-3, announced Colonel Hayes, his voice cutting through the morning stillness. "This isn't just another training exercise. The Pentagon is watching, NATO allies are watching, and frankly, gentlemen..." His eyes swept the room, pausing dismissively on Sarah. "And lady, careers will be made or broken in the next 72 hours. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though her jaw tightened imperceptibly. At 28, she had clawed her way up through a system that seemed designed to keep women like her grounded. Her flight record was impeccable: 340 hours of combat. Time over Syria, 8 confirmed kills, and not a single aircraft lost under her command. Yet here she stood, surrounded by men who still saw her as an anomaly. "The exercise parameters are simple," Colonel Hayes continued, clicking his laser pointer at the massive screen. "Blue Force versus Red Force, air-to-air combat scenarios. Electronic warfare, ground attack missions. The pilot with the highest combined score takes home the Ace of Aces trophy and gets recommended for the next squadron commander position." Murmurs rippled through the room. The Ace of Aces wasn't just a trophy. It was a career-defining achievement that opened doors to the Pentagon, to test pilot programs, to the kind of assignments that made legends. "Rankings are based on your last 6 months of performance evaluations," Hayes announced, pulling up a list on the screen. "Major Viper Reynolds, you're ranked 1st, Captain Maverick Thompson 2nd, Captain Razor Davis 3rd. Sarah's name appeared at number 18. A few snickers echoed from the back of the room. "Ghost at 18. Someone whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess the PC crowd is really pushing quotas now." General Marcus Kane, a silver-haired veteran with 4 stars on his collar, had been observing silently from the corner. He stepped forward, his weathered face breaking into what might have been a smile or a smirk. 18 out of 24, he said, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades in the cockpit. "That's what diversity initiatives get you, boys. Someone who looks good in recruitment videos but can't hang with the real operators." The room fell silent. Sarah felt every eye on her, waiting for her reaction. Her hands remained clasped behind her back, her breathing steady and controlled. She had learned long ago that responding to provocations only gave them more ammunition. "With respect, General," she said, her voice clear and professional, "my ranking reflects administrative evaluations, not combat performance. I'm confident. My abilities will speak for themselves once we're airborne." General Kane's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Confidence, Captain. That's what I like to hear. But confidence doesn't keep you alive at 30,000 feet when someone's painting you with a targeting laser." He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Tell you what, Mitchell, since you're so confident, let's make this interesting. Tomorrow's opening scenario, you'll be flying solo against a flight of 4 Red Force aggressors. If you can survive 15 minutes without getting shot down, I'll publicly apologize for underestimating you." The room erupted in low conversations. Flying solo against 4 opponents was essentially suicide in military aviation. Even the most skilled pilots relied on wingmen for survival. "And if I don't just survive, but eliminate all 4 targets?" Sarah asked, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. General Kane's smile widened. "If you pull off that miracle, Captain, I'll personally recommend you for immediate promotion to Major and first consideration for the next squadron command position. But when you wash out, and you will wash out, you'll request a transfer to a nice, safe desk job where you belong." The silence stretched taut as a wire. Sarah knew this was more than a challenge. It was a public humiliation designed to put her in her place. But it was also an opportunity, a chance to prove herself beyond any doubt. "I accept your terms, General," she said. Colonel Hayes cleared his throat uncomfortably. "General, Perhaps we should stick to the standard exercise parameters. No, Kane interrupted, his eyes still locked on Sarah's. The captain wants to play with the big boys. Let's see what she's made of. As the briefing disbanded, Sarah remained behind, studying the tactical displays on the wall. The F-16 Fighting Falcon she'd be flying tomorrow was a formidable machine. 9 Gs of acceleration, a 20mm cannon, and the ability to carry a devastating array of missiles. But numbers and specifications meant nothing without the skill to use them. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger sister Emma, a college student back in Ohio. Saw the news about Red Flag on the base website. Kick some ass, big sister. Sarah smiled for the first time all day. Emma had been her constant source of support through the darkest moments of her career, when instructors at the academy tried to wash her out, when fellow pilots questioned her right to be there, when the weight of representing all women in combat aviation felt too heavy to bear. She walked toward the hangar where her F-16 waited, its grey paint scheme gleaming under the harsh Nevada sun. The crew chief, Master Sergeant Rodriguez, was already performing pre-flight checks. Heard about. Tomorrow's show, Captain, Rodriguez said without looking up from his checklist. 4 against 1 ain't exactly fair odds. Fair odds are for people who need handicaps, Sergeant, Sarah replied, running her hand along the aircraft's fuselage. I just need this bird to fly true. Rodriguez finally looked up, his weathered face serious. She'll fly, ma'am. Question is, can you make those other pilots believe in ghosts? As night fell over Nellis, Sarah sat in her quarters reviewing tactical manuals and flight recordings. The challenge ahead was more than personal. It was about proving that excellence had no gender, that skill transcended prejudice, that the best pilot should win regardless of who they were. Tomorrow, she would either make history or become a cautionary tale. Either way, she'd face it with her head held high and her hands steady on the controls. Dawn broke over Nellis Air Force Base with the promise of perfect flying weather, clear skies, minimal wind, and unlimited visibility. Sarah stood on the flight line at 0530, her flight suit crisp and her helmet tucked under her arm. The desert air was still cool, but she knew that within hours the temperature would soar past 110 degrees. Around her, the base was already buzzing with activity. Ground crews prepped aircraft, pilots studied mission briefs, and the distinctive whine of jet engines filled the air as early morning flights took off for training runs. But today felt different. Word of General Kane's challenge had spread through the pilot community like wildfire. Ghost, you sure about this? Captain Jake Maverick Thompson approached, his face etched with concern. Jake had been her wingman on 3 deployments and knew her capabilities better than anyone. 4 against 1 isn't training, it's execution. Sarah secured her helmet and checked her watch. The General wants a demonstration. I'm going to give him one he'll never forget. This isn't about proving yourself to Kane, Jake pressed. Everyone here knows you can fly. You don't need to. Yes, I do. Sarah's voice cut through his protest. Every time I step into a cockpit, I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing every woman who wants to serve in combat aviation. If I back down now, it sends a message that we don't belong here. Master Sergeant Rodriguez jogged over, his face flushed with excitement. Captain, you need to see this. The betting boards are going crazy. Half the base is putting money on you getting shot down in the first 5 minutes. What about the other half? Sarah asked. They're betting you'll last 10 minutes, Rodriguez grinned. But I put $50 on you schooling all 4 of those Red Force hotshots. The odds are 20 to 1 against you. Sarah laughed despite the pressure. Thanks for the confidence, Sergeant. Don't spend your winnings all in one place. As she climbed into the cockpit of her F-16, Sarah ran through her pre-flight checklist. With methodical precision, each switch, each gauge, each system had to be perfect. In aerial combat, the smallest malfunction could mean the difference between victory and catastrophe. The radio crackled to life. Ghost, this is Tower. You are cleared for takeoff. Red Force flight is already airborne and waiting at the designated coordinates. Tower, Ghost copies. Taking off now. Aching. Sarah advanced the throttle, feeling the familiar surge of power as the F-16's engine spooled up. The aircraft rolled forward, gaining speed until the runway became a blur beneath her wings. At 150 knots, she pulled back on the stick, and the fighter leaped into the sky like a caged bird finally set free. "Ghost, this is Overlord," came the voice of the exercise controller. "You are cleared to the red flag training area. Your targets are 4 F-16s flying in standard finger four formation at Angels 25. Exercise commences in 30 seconds. Sarah climbed to 28,000 feet, positioning herself above the target area. Through her heads-up display, she could see the 4 red dots representing her opponents. They were flying in a tight formation, clearly confident in their numerical superiority. Red. "Force, this is Overlord. Exercise is live." "Repeat, exercise is live." Immediately the 4 aircraft broke formation, spreading out in a classic pincer movement designed to trap her between converging attacks. Sarah smiled grimly. They were fighting by the book, exactly what she had hoped. 4. "Ghost, this is Red Leader. You sure you don't want to surrender now and save yourself the embarrassment?" Sarah keyed her radio. "Red Leader, this is Ghost. I'm sure you don't want to explain to your CO how you got shot down by someone ranked 18th. She rolled inverted and dove toward the deck, using the F-16's superior power-to-weight ratio to build speed. The key to surviving a 4-on-1 engagement was to avoid getting surrounded, to fight on her terms rather than theirs. The first missile lock-on warning blared in her headset. Red 3 had achieved a firing solution and was cycling through his weapons. Sarah waited until the last possible second, then pulled a crushing 9G turn that grayed out her vision and made her flight suit's G-suit inflate around her legs and torso. The simulated missile shot harmlessly past her aircraft. "Red 3, you're off the shot," she called out, swinging behind him in a perfect barrel roll. "Fox 2." The simulated Sidewinder missile left her aircraft, and Red 3's fighter erupted in electronic flames. "Red 3 is down," announced the controller. "Ghost his first kill." 3 opponents remained, but they were angry now, abandoning their tactical discipline in favor of brute force attacks. Sarah used their aggression against them, drawing 2 aircraft into a head-on pass while the 3rd tried to bracket her from above. At the last second, she rolled left and pulled vertical, causing the 2 attacking aircraft to nearly collide with each other. As they separated, Sarah found herself perfectly positioned behind Red 4. "Fox 2. Red 4 is down. 2 remained." Red Leader and Red 2 were now working together more effectively, trying to box her in between them. Sarah knew she had to end this quickly before they could coordinate a killing blow. She performed a maneuver that would have been impossible in a less capable aircraft, a high-speed yo-yo that brought her nose around to bear on Red 2 while simultaneously defeating Red Leader's missile lock. "Fox 2, Red 2 is down." Red Leader was alone now, and Sarah could hear the frustration in his voice as he called out, "How the hell is she doing this?" The final engagement was a classic dogfight. 2 aircraft locked in a deadly dance of turn and counter-turn, each pilot trying to gain the angle advantage needed for a killing shot. Sarah's smaller frame gave her a slight advantage in high-G maneuvers, and she used every ounce of it. Finally, after 3 minutes of intense maneuvering, she achieved the perfect shot position. "Fox 2! Red Leader is down." The radio fell silent except for the controller's voice. "All Red Force aircraft are down. Ghost is the winner. Exercise complete." Sarah leveled her aircraft and began the flight back to base, her heart still pounding from the adrenaline rush. In 12 minutes and 34 seconds, she had just accomplished what most pilots would consider impossible. As she approached the landing pattern, she could see crowds gathering on the flight line. Word of her victory had already spread. The wheels of Sarah's F-16 touched down on the runway with a satisfying thump, and she could see the crowd that had gathered even before she reached the parking area. News of her victory had spread like wildfire through the base, and it seemed like half of Nellis had turned out to witness her return. As she taxied to her assigned spot, Sarah could make out familiar faces in the crowd. Fellow pilots, ground, crew, support staff, and standing prominently in the front, General Kane with his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. Master Sergeant Rodriguez was waiting with the ground crew, his face split by an enormous grin. 12 minutes and 34 seconds, Captain. You just made me the richest NCO on base. Sarah shut down the engine and began her post-flight checklist, but her hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. What she had just accomplished was more than a victory. It was a statement that would echo through the Air Force for years to come. Colonel Hayes approached as she climbed down from the cockpit. Captain Mitchell, that was extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. Thank you, sir. The aircraft performed flawlessly. The aircraft didn't defeat 4 opponents in 12 minutes, Captain. That was all pilot skill. The crowd parted. As General Kane approached, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Behind him walked a woman in civilian clothes, short, middle-aged, with keen intelligence in her eyes and a digital recorder in her hand. Captain Mitchell, Kane said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet flight line. I owe you an apology. Sarah, came to attention. Sir, no apology necessary. I was simply doing my job. No, Kane said firmly. I was wrong, dead wrong. I let prejudice cloud my judgment, and I made assumptions that had no basis in fact. He looked around at the assembled crowd. What I witnessed today was not just exceptional flying, it was a master class in aerial combat that will be studied for years to come. The woman with the recorder stepped forward. General, I'm Lisa Chen from Military Times. Can you elaborate on what made this performance so remarkable? Kane glanced at Sarah, who nodded slightly. Ms. Chen, in 32 years of military aviation, I have never seen a pilot single-handedly defeat 4 opponents in such a convincing manner. The tactical awareness, the precision flying, the split-second decision-making, it was textbook. Perfect, Captain Mitchell. Chen turned to Sarah. You're being called the first female pilot to achieve this level of performance in red flag exercises. How does that feel? Sarah considered her words carefully. Ma'am, I prefer to think of myself as a pilot who happens to be female rather than a female pilot. Gender doesn't determine capability in the cockpit. Training, skill, and dedication do. But surely you recognize the significance of what you've accomplished today. I recognize that I had an opportunity to demonstrate my abilities, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But more importantly, I hope this opens doors for other qualified pilots, regardless of their background. Jake Thompson pushed through the crowd, his face beaming with pride. Sarah, that was incredible. The way you used vertical separation against Red 3 and 4, I've never seen anything like it. Just good training and a little luck, Sarah replied, though her smile suggested she knew exactly how skilled her performance had been. General Kane raised his hand for silence. Captain Mitchell, I made you a promise this morning. I said that if you could eliminate all 4 targets, I would personally recommend you for immediate promotion to Major and first consideration for Squadron Command. The crowd fell silent, everyone straining to hear his next words. Effective immediately, you are promoted to Major. Furthermore, I am recommending you for command of the 64th Aggressor Squadron, one of the most elite units in the Air Force. Applause erupted from the crowd, but Sarah remained focused on the general. Sir, I'm honored by your confidence, but I want to earn that position through the normal channels. I don't want anyone to think I received special treatment. Kane's expression softened with something approaching respect. Major Mitchell, what you accomplished today was the opposite of special treatment. You faced the ultimate test under impossible odds and succeeded brilliantly. Any pilot, male or female, who can do what you just did deserves command of the finest pilots in the Air Force. Lisa Chen continued her questions. Major Mitchell, what's your response to critics who say women don't belong in combat aviation? Sarah looked directly into the camera. I tell them to look at the results. Today, I flew against 4 of the Air Force's top pilots and emerged victorious. That's not about gender. That's about training, skill, and determination. The military should be about putting the best qualified people in the right positions, regardless of anything else. General Kane, Chen continued, will this change how the Air Force evaluates female pilots? Kane paused, clearly weighing his words. It should change how we evaluate all pilots. We need to focus on performance, not preconceptions. What Major Mitchell demonstrated today is that excellence comes in many forms, and we need to be open to recognizing it wherever we find it. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah found herself surrounded by fellow pilots, offering congratulations and asking technical questions about her tactics. But one conversation stood out, a young female lieutenant who approached nervously. "Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Jessica Park. I'm scheduled to start pilot training next month, and I just wanted to say thank you. You've shown me that it's possible." Sarah smiled warmly. "Lieutenant, the only thing I've shown you is that hard work and dedication pay off. Gender doesn't determine who can fly and who can't. Your commitment to excellence does. But don't you feel pressure representing all women in aviation?" "I feel pressure to be the best pilot I can be," Sarah replied. "If that happens to inspire other women to pursue their dreams, then I'm honored. But I'm not trying to prove anything, except that I belong in this cockpit." Later that evening, Sarah sat in her quarters, reviewing the day's events. Her phone had been ringing constantly with interview requests, congratulations from former instructors, and messages from women around the world who had seen the news coverage. But the message that meant the most was from her sister, Emma. "Saw the news. You didn't just break records today, sis. You broke barriers. Mom and Dad would be so proud." Sarah smiled, remembering her parents who had died in a car accident during her sophomore year at the academy. They had always believed in her dreams, even when others doubted. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove herself, but tonight she was content knowing that she had flown with honor and shown the world what was possible when skill met opportunity. 3 weeks after her historic victory, Major Sarah Mitchell found herself in the Pentagon briefing room, facing a panel of the Air Force's most senior leadership. The mahogany table gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the walls were adorned with portraits of aviation legends who had shaped military history. "Major Mitchell," said General Patricia Hayes, the Air Force's highest-ranking female officer, "your performance at Red Flag has created quite a stir, not just within our service, but internationally." Sarah sat at attention, her service dress uniform immaculate. "Yes, ma'am. I've been fielding quite a few interview requests." "More than requests," interjected General Robert Chen, the Air Force Chief of Staff. "The Secretary of Defense wants to meet with you personally. NATO commanders are asking about your tactical innovations. And frankly, recruitment applications from qualified women have increased by 300% since your flight." General Kane, who had flown in specifically for this meeting, leaned forward. "Major, I want to revisit our conversation about the 64th Aggressor Squadron. The position is still available, but there's something else we need to discuss." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Sir, the Air Force is establishing a new test program," General Hayes explained. "Advanced Air Combat Tactics Development. We're looking for pilots who can think outside traditional parameters and develop the next generation of aerial warfare strategies. It's a career-defining opportunity," General Chen added. "You'd be working with classified aircraft, developing tactics that could reshape air combat for the next 20 years. The room fell silent as Sarah processed the implications. This wasn't just about her career, it was about the future of air warfare itself. "There's one complication," General Kane said quietly. "The program requires a security clearance upgrade. That involves extensive background investigations. Your personal life, your associates, your entire history will be scrutinized." "I understand, sir. I have nothing to hide." "We know that," General Hayes said. "But there are elements within the military establishment who still question whether women should be in combat roles, let alone developing combat tactics. They'll be looking for any reason to disqualify you." Sarah's jaw tightened. Are you saying I should decline this opportunity because of potential political opposition? I'm saying you should understand what you're walking into, General Kane replied. This isn't just about flying anymore. You'll be a symbol, a target, and a pioneer all at once. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it quickly and felt her heart skip a beat. It was from Jake Thompson. Emergency. Emma's been in an accident. She's at Ohio State Medical Center. Critical condition. Sarah's composure cracked. For just a moment. Generals, I need to request emergency leave. My sister has been seriously injured. The room erupted in concerned voices, but General Hayes raised her hand for silence. Major, take all the time you need. We'll postpone this decision until you're ready. No, ma'am, Sarah said firmly. I can give you my answer now. I accept the position, with the understanding that I may need to take leave for family emergencies. General Chen nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of dedication we need in this program. Go to your sister, Major. We'll handle the paperwork. 8 hours later, Sarah was walking through the sterile corridors of Ohio State Medical Center, still wearing her uniform. She found Emma's room and peered through the window. Her 23-year-old sister lay unconscious, connected to various machines, her face pale and bruised. She was hit by a drunk driver, said Dr. Patricia Wong, the attending physician. Traumatic brain injury, internal bleeding, multiple fractures. The next 48 hours are critical. Sarah sank into a chair beside Emma's bed, taking her sister's hand. Come on, Em. You can't give up on me now, not after everything we've been through. For the next 3 days, Sarah maintained a constant vigil. She read to Emma, played her favorite music, and shared stories from her Air Force career. The room filled with flowers from fellow pilots, cards from strangers who had heard her story, and messages of support from around the world. On the 4th day, Emma's eyes fluttered open. Sarah, she whispered weakly. I'm here, Em. I'm right. Here. Emma's grip tightened on Sarah's hand. Did I miss you becoming famous? Sarah laughed through her tears. You didn't miss anything important. The only thing that matters is that you're going to be okay. I saw the news coverage, Emma said slowly. You really showed them, didn't you? I showed them that skill matters more than prejudice. But Em, you're the one who taught me that. You never let me give up on myself. Dr. Wong entered the room, reviewing Emma's chart. The brain swelling is reducing and her vital signs are stabilizing. She's going to need extensive rehabilitation, but the prognosis is good. Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for everything. As Emma drifted back to sleep, Sarah's phone rang. It was General Kane. Major, how is your sister? She's going to recover, sir. It'll take time, but she's going to be okay. I'm glad to hear that. I'm calling because the President has asked to meet with you personally. She wants to discuss the importance of women in combat roles. Sarah looked at her sleeping sister, remembering all the times Emma had encouraged her to pursue her dreams despite the obstacles. Sir, I'd be honored to meet with the President, but I have one condition. Name it. When the test program goes public, I want to make sure the focus is on capability and performance, not gender. I want to be judged by the same standards as any other pilot. Agreed. But Major, you should know that you've already changed the conversation. Applications to the Air Force Academy from women have increased by 500%. You've inspired an entire generation. As Sarah hung up the phone, she realized that her journey was just beginning. She had proven herself in the cockpit, but the real challenge lay ahead, using her platform to open doors for others while maintaining the excellence that had brought her to this point. Emma stirred in her sleep, and Sarah squeezed her hand gently. We did it, Em. We really did it. 6 months later, Major Sarah Mitchell stood before a congressional hearing, her testimony being broadcast live to millions of viewers around the world. The hearing room was packed with media, military officials, and advocates on both sides. Of the women in combat debate, Major Mitchell, said Congressman Bradley Williams, the committee chairman, you've become a symbol of women's capabilities in combat aviation. How do you respond to critics who say your success is an isolated incident? Sarah leaned into the microphone, her voice clear and confident. Congressman, I would argue that my success isn't isolated. It's simply the first time someone has had the opportunity to demonstrate these capabilities on such a public stage. There are hundreds of qualified women in our military who could achieve similar results if given the chance. Senator Maria Rodriguez, a former Air Force officer herself, leaned forward. Major, can you walk us through the specific tactical innovations that made your red flag performance so exceptional? Senator, the key was situational awareness combined with unconventional maneuvering. I used the F-16's superior power-to-weight ratio to create vertical separation, then employed what we call energy management to stay inside my opponent's decision loops. It wasn't about being stronger or faster, it was about being smarter. Representative James Parker, known for his conservative views on military policy, challenged her. Major, some analysts suggest that your performance was due to your opponents underestimating you because of your gender. Doesn't that actually prove that women create distractions in combat situations? Sarah's expression remained composed. Representative Parker, if my opponents underestimated me, that was their tactical error, not mine. In real combat, any advantage, whether it's superior training, better equipment, or even an enemy's preconceptions, can mean the difference between victory and defeat. A skilled pilot uses every advantage available. But surely you recognize that unit cohesion can be affected by— Sir, Sarah interrupted respectfully, I've served in mixed-gender units for my entire career. My wingmen have trusted me with their lives, and I've trusted them with mine. Unit cohesion is built on competence, trust, and shared commitment to the mission. Gender is irrelevant when bullets are flying. The hearing continued for 3 hours, with Sarah fielding questions about everything from physical requirements to psychological readiness. But the moment that would be replayed on news channels around the world came when Senator Rodriguez asked her final question. Major Mitchell, what would you say to a young woman who dreams of becoming a fighter pilot but is told she's not strong enough, not aggressive enough, not suitable for combat? Sarah paused, thinking of her sister Emma, who was watching from the gallery with a walking cane but a brilliant smile, thinking of Lieutenant Jessica Park, who had just completed her first solo flight, thinking of all the women who had been told their dreams were impossible. I would tell her that strength comes in many forms, that aggression without intelligence is just recklessness, that suitability is determined by performance, not prejudice. Sarah's voice grew stronger. I would tell her that the sky belongs to anyone brave enough to claim it and skilled enough to master it. The hearing room erupted in applause, but Sarah's attention was focused on Emma, who was wiping tears from her eyes. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the hangar at Edwards Air Force Base, California, looking at the most advanced fighter aircraft she had ever seen. The F-35C was sleek, angular, and packed with technology that would have been science fiction just a decade earlier. Major Mitchell, said Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the test program's chief engineer, this aircraft represents the future of air combat. Stealth capabilities, advanced sensors, and artificial intelligence integration that will change how we fight. Sarah ran her hand along the aircraft's fuselage. When do we start flight testing? Next week. But first, there's someone I want you to meet. Dr. Chen led her to a nearby office where a young woman in a flight suit was studying technical manuals. She looked up as they entered, her face breaking into a nervous smile. Major Mitchell, this is Captain Amy Chen, my daughter. She's your new test pilot partner. Sarah shook Amy's hand, noting the firm grip and steady gaze. Captain Chen, I look forward to working with you. Ma'am, I just want you to know that your red flag performance inspired me to apply for this program. I've been following your career since I was a cadet. Sarah smiled. Captain, the best way to honor that inspiration is to be the best pilot you can be. Gender got you neither of us into this cockpit. Skill did. Later that evening, Sarah sat in her quarters, writing in her journal, a habit she had maintained since her academy days. She wrote about the congressional hearing, about the new test program, about the responsibility she felt to the women who would follow in her footsteps. Her phone rang. It was Emma, calling from Ohio State University, where she was finishing her master's degree in aerospace engineering. "Sarah, I saw the hearing on C-SPAN. You were incredible." "Thanks, Em. How are you feeling?" "Good days and bad days, but mostly good. The doctors say I'll make a full recovery. And Sarah, I've been accepted to the Air Force's civilian engineering program. I want to design the aircraft you'll be flying." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. That's wonderful. Mom and Dad would be so proud of both of us." "They would be proud of you," Emma said. "You kept your promise to them and to yourself. You proved that dreams don't have expiration dates." As Sarah hung up the phone, she walked to her window and looked out at the flight line. Tomorrow, she would begin testing aircraft that might not see operational service for another decade. She would help develop tactics that would protect pilots she might never meet, fighting in conflicts that hadn't yet begun. But tonight, she was simply a woman who had refused to let others define her limitations, who had turned doubt into determination, barriers into stepping stones, and impossible into inevitable. The sky above Edwards was clear and filled with stars, each one a reminder that the universe was vast, full of possibilities, and belonged to anyone brave enough to reach for it. In her journal, she wrote her final entry. "Today I testified before Congress about women in combat aviation." But the real testimony was written in the sky over Nellis Air Force Base, in 12 minutes and 34 seconds of flight time that changed everything. The general laughed at my ranking. Minutes later, I broke every record that mattered, not because I was a woman trying to prove a point, but because I was a pilot doing what pilots do, flying higher, faster, and better than anyone thought possible.